This is A News. I'm Bakhtiar Sanova, and let's go through the main headlines. The United States charges former Cuban President Raúl Castro with murder and conspiracy charges. Israeli security minister stirs diplomatic outrage with flotilla activist abuse video. And according to World Health Organization, vaccine to tackle Ebola outbreak may take 3 to 9 months. The United States has charged former Cuban leader Raúl Castro with conspiracy to kill U.S. nationals and other crimes over the 1996 downing of 2 planes between Cuba and Florida. The case, unveiled on Wednesday, accuses Castro and 5 others in the shooting down of the aircraft belonging to Cuban-American group. Our correspondent Ubi Shbander has the details.
The Trump administration has officially indicted former Cuban leader Raúl Castro for shooting down a plane that killed 4 Americans back in 1996. The planes were operated by a Cuban-American exile group that would often fly into Cuban airspace and around surrounding waters, looking for Cubans who were fleeing the country in droves at the time. The U.S. Justice Department charged the 94-year-old former president of Cuba with murder and a conspiracy to kill American citizens. The announcement was made in a federal district court in Miami to huge fanfare from the Cuban-American community. President Trump told reporters on Wednesday that, quote, "We are freeing up Cuba." Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who is of Cuban heritage, released a video in Spanish on Wednesday in a message that was directed to the Cuban people. Rubio blamed the Cuban people's hardships on their communist leadership. It was the first time that Rubio has directly addressed the Cuban population at a time when the Trump administration continues to pile on pressure on Cuban authorities as the country suffers through severe shortages of electricity, fuel, and food. Rubio said that President Trump is ready to establish a new relationship between the United States and Cuba, but that it must be a relationship directly with the Cuban people and not with the Cuban military or its affiliated business conglomerates. I'm Ubi Shabander, A News, Washington.
The United States has indicted former Cuban President Raúl Castro over a 1996 plane incident, triggering divided reactions in Cuba and among Cuban exiles in the United States. The case comes amid renewed tensions between Washington and Havana.
Cubans have reacted with sharply divided opinions after the United States moved to indict former Cuban President Raúl Castro on murder charges, in what Washington says is part of a broader pressure campaign against Cuba's communist leadership. In Havana, local residents dismissed the indictment as politically motivated.
Now they're trying to bring them to justice for an act that was self-defense and took place in a specific context, basically in Cuban territorial waters. And it's a right to self-defense that any nation has. And I believe that fundamentally what this is specifically seeking to do is to escalate the conflict a bit further at a difficult time for both nations.
Others echoed similar skepticism, saying the move was an attempt to revive old disputes.
Every day they come up with a new excuse, a new argument, a new supposed reason to condemn Cuba, to attack Cuba, and to stir up trouble over something that happened a very long time ago. And now, after so many years, to bring that up again is truly ridiculous. To me, it's ridiculous. It makes no sense.
But among some Cuban migrants in Miami, the decision has been welcomed as a long-awaited step toward change on the island.
This is the best opportunity. If we don't take advantage with our President Trump, Cuba will never be free again.
This is the best opportunity. If we don't take advantage with our President Trump, Cuba will never be free again.
Others, reflecting on their experiences in Cuba, describe the government as responsible for decades of decline.
I was born and I grew up in Cuba, and I saw a very prosperous country, a very happy people, and it has been destroyed by the Castros. The Castros have to go. This band of people have to go out of the country, because though Cuba would have the chance to live again and survive and grow again like it was.
The developments come amid rising tensions this year between the administration of President Donald Trump and Cuba's government, as diplomatic friction in the region continues to intensify.
Diplomatic talks between Greenland and the United States wrapped up in Nuuk, with officials pointing to progress in discussions over the territory's future, while firmly rejecting any idea of a sale or takeover. U.S. Special Envoy Jeff Landry traveled to Nuuk and met senior officials, including the Prime Minister and Foreign Minister. Greenland's leadership stressed opposition to any annexation or purchase, while maintaining dialogue aimed at a mutually acceptable solution. The visit comes amid tensions linked to President Donald Trump's push for U.S. control and plans to expand military presence in Greenland. U.S. President Donald Trump says America could decide within days whether to take further action against Iran, as negotiations over Tehran's nuclear program appear to be reaching a critical stage.
President Donald Trump says Washington is prepared to move quickly if Iran fails to deliver what he called the right answers in ongoing negotiations over its nuclear program. Speaking to reporters on Wednesday, Trump said the United States could wait a few days for a response if it could prevent more people being killed, but warned action could also come very quickly. He also rejected reports that Washington had offered Iran oil sanctions relief, saying no relief would come before an agreement is signed.
Very right on the borderline, believe me. If we don't get the right answers, it goes very quickly. We're all ready to go. We have to get the right answers. It would have to be a complete 100% good answers. And if we do, we save a lot of time, energy, and lives, most importantly.
During a commencement address at the US Coast Guard Academy, Trump repeated that Iran would not be allowed to obtain a nuclear weapon. Trump claimed Iran's Navy and Air Force were largely gone and questioned whether Tehran would sign a deal or face further military action.
You saw that right now in Iran. Everything's gone. Their Navy's gone. Their Air Force is gone. Just about everything. The only question is, do we go and finish it up, or are they going to be signing a document? Let's see what happens. But we're a hot country. We're the hottest country anywhere in the world, with the strongest, most powerful military anywhere in the world, and there's nobody close.
Meanwhile, in Tehran, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said diplomacy and military preparedness remain aligned, adding Iran would negotiate when necessary, but would also be ready to defend its interests with strength.
Should it become necessary, should the interests of the state dictate that we prepare ourselves in the field of diplomacy, of discussion, of negotiation, then we will prepare ourselves, but with strength, the same strength with which the armed forces prepare themselves in defense of the country.
At the same time, an Israeli analyst warned Iran is tightening its grip on the Strait of Hormuz, saying tanker traffic through the key oil choke point is increasingly subject to Iranian oversight and could heighten the risk of wider escalation.
Sri Lanka's tea sector is facing mounting pressure as Middle Eastern demand weakens and shipping disruptions intensify. Exporters are now trying to maintain volumes while exploring new markets to offset losses among overseas buyers.
The Iran crisis is hitting Sri Lanka's $1.5 billion tea industry, which employs more than 2 million people, with exports falling 17.3% year-on-year in March to $114.75 million. Middle Eastern markets account for half of Ceylon Tea's exports, worth around $680 million annually. Industry officials say the downturn began almost immediately after the crisis erupted in late February, with prices falling sharply at tea auctions.
28th of February is when it happened. So the following auction, there was a drop in tea prices, which would have been, like about 20% drop in the prices, as well as there were about 20% teas which was not sold at the auction.
Exports to Iraq have dropped by 38%, while shipments to the United Arab Emirates have fallen by 93%, according to Sri Lanka's Export Development Board. Major brands such as Dilmah, which generates around 30% of its business in the Middle East, say the crisis is disrupting logistics and hospitality markets across the Gulf.
We have seen a challenge in terms of logistics, supply chain, both raw materials and in terms of our export logistics. So while there is no change in consumption patterns, certainly in the Gulf, the hospitality is affected. Dubai, Saudi and so on, significant markets for premium hospitality, all affected by the ongoing crisis.
Analysts say the industry's heavy reliance on bulk tea exports is now under renewed pressure as producers confront rising freight costs and ongoing uncertainty tied to the Iran crisis.
The United Kingdom and the Gulf Cooperation Council have signed a joint statement on Wednesday, marking the successful conclusion of negotiations on a free trade agreement after years of talks. The deal was signed in London by GCC Secretary-General Jassim Abdullayevi and UK Trade Minister Chris Bryant. Saudi Ambassador to the UK, Abdullah bin Khalid bin Sultan, said it marks an important step in strengthening partnership in priority sectors. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer called it a historic trade deal with the Gulf and a huge win for British business. The agreement covers goods and services, financial services, digital trade, investment protection, government procurement, telecommunications and movement of people. According to the latest data, current GCC UK trade exceeds $53 billion. Tensions are rising between Israel and several European countries after the detention of activists from a Gaza-bound aid flotilla. The images released from Israel's security minister has sparked diplomatic outrage across the globe and criticism from inside Israel itself.
Israel's far-right National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir has sparked an international diplomatic crisis after publishing footage showing detained international activists being abused by Israeli security forces. The activists were part of the global Sumud flotilla, which departed from Turkey last week carrying humanitarian aid bound for Gaza. In the footage, Ben-Gvir is seen waving an Israeli flag and mocking the activists after their detention.
They came here full of pride, acting like heroes. Look at them now. They are not heroes. They are supporters of terror. I say to Prime Minister Netanyahu, keep them here longer. Put them in the terrorists' prisons. This is how they should be treated.
Israeli authorities said around 430 activists from 40 countries were detained and taken to Ashdod port after the interception. Lawyers for the group say several activists were injured during the operation, with 3 briefly hospitalized and others suffering suspected broken ribs and breathing problems. Some detainees are expected to be transferred to Ketziot prison in southern Israel, according to rights group Adalah and flotilla organizers. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the conduct was not in line with Israel's values and ordered the activists deported. Foreign Minister Gideon Sayar accused Ben-Gvir of damaging Israel's international standing. The footage also triggered widespread condemnation around the world. Belgium, France, Spain and the Netherlands summoned Israeli diplomats for explanations, while Greece, Ireland and Italy demanded the immediate release of their citizens. Leaders from the UK, Canada, Germany, Australia and New Zealand also condemned the treatment of activists on board the flotilla. South Korean President Lee Jae-myung described Israel's actions as way out of line and questioned the legality of arrests carried out in international waters. Even US Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee, a longtime ally of Israel, called Ben-Gvir's behavior despicable and said the minister had betrayed the dignity of his nation. The flotilla was the latest attempt by international activists to break Israel's blockade on Gaza, where aid agencies continue to warn of severe shortages of food, medicine and other essential supplies, despite the ongoing Israel-Hamas ceasefire.
Israel has moved a step closer to a snap election after lawmakers gave initial approval to dissolve parliament. The move comes in the middle of growing tensions inside Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's coalition after ultra-Orthodox allies accused him of failing to deliver legislation exempting their community from mandatory military service. If approved, Israel could head to elections a month ahead of the current October deadline and would be the country's first national vote since the Hamas attacks. Opinion polls suggest Netanyahu could face significant losses if early elections are held. Serbian President Alexander Vučić is due in Beijing this Saturday for a 5-day state visit, becoming the latest world leader to touch down in the Chinese capital, which has hosted both Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin in the space of just 1 week. Mahnur Maktoum has more on this from Beijing.
Beijing is preparing for another high-profile visit, this time from Serbian President Alexander Vučić, who is set to arrive here on Saturday for a 5-day state visit at the invitation of Chinese President Xi Jinping. This will be his first formal state visit to China, and Beijing has been keen to underline just how significant it considers the relationship. Chinese officials describe Serbia as the first European country to build what they call a community with a shared future with China and an important partner in Central and Eastern Europe. Serbia was the first European country to join China's Belt and Road Initiative back in 2015, even while it was actively pursuing EU membership. It's a little-known fact that helps explain why China treats Serbia as such a prized partner on the continent. The visit comes at a notable moment. Just this week, Beijing hosted Russian President Vladimir Putin, and days before that, US President Donald Trump. The fact that Serbian leader is next in line speaks to China's efforts to engage actively across the geopolitical spectrum. On the agenda here are expected to be trade, infrastructure and investment, including the ongoing Belgrade-Subotica high-speed railway project, as well as overall economic cooperation under the Serbia-China Free Trade Agreement. Morning to A News, Beijing.
World Health Organization experts say 2 potential Ebola vaccines are being considered for use in the outbreak in eastern DRC, but they warn development and deployment could take between 3 and 9 months, even as cases continue to rise. Officials say the Bundibugyo strain has caused 139 suspected deaths and around about 600 suspected cases, with 51 confirmed in the DRC and 2 in Uganda. The WHO says it likely began a month ago after a critical detection gap that slowed confirmation and contact tracing. No approved vaccines or treatments exist for this strain, and investigators suspect a super spreading event may have accelerated transmission. The U.S. Federal Reserve's April 28 to 29th meeting showed policymakers were concerned about inflation and the wider economic impact of uncertainty linked to the Middle East situation. The report released on Wednesday said most officials at the Federal Open Market Committee felt interest rates might need to rise further if inflation continues to stay above the 2% target. Officials also pointed to rising global energy prices as one of the factors adding to uncertainty in the United States' economic prospects. The Fed decided at the meeting to keep its key interest rate unchanged at 3.5% to 3.75%. Now we'll take a short break. Right after the break, we'll discuss the deepening Xi-Putin strategic alignment and its impact on the global balance of power. Stay tuned. Welcome back to A News. Now we examine the growing strategic alignment between Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin following their high-profile summit in Beijing. As both leaders condemn what they call irresponsible U.S. foreign policy and deepen cooperation in energy, technology and geopolitics, questions are mounting over the future of global power dynamics. With Donald Trump's renewed diplomatic push in Asia and escalating tensions in the Middle East and Ukraine, is China now balancing between partnership with Russia and competition with the United States, or has one side already gained the upper hand? Joining us now from Stockholm, Sweden, is political analyst Gregory Metsu. Gregory, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you very much.
Welcome. So how significant was the Xi-Putin summit in the current geopolitical climate, and why did both leaders choose such strong language against the United States in their joint statement?
I would say that the summit is very significant, and it was not much about to sign new deals or to make a new partnership, because this partnership is long existing between Russia and China. And the fact that it happens now is not a coincidence, and it is a sign and to show that Russia and China remain aligned against what could be called the US-led dominance. And the strong language, in fact, reflects shared opposition to sanctions, US military pressure and adventures, missile defense, etc. I would qualify this, that Russia and China would like to state that they are partner, and the US is not a partner, it's a competitor for both of them.
Mr. Metsu, how should we interpret Xi Jinping's warning about a return to the law of the jungle?
Well, it's a warning, and you know, China, Russia, and US are three members of the UN Security Council. And Mr. Xi probably refers to that fact that there are rules, there are international laws, and you can't launch a war here and there or kidnap Maduro as you want. There are rules that needs to be respected, and you cannot use military pressure, sanction, unilateral intervention, and to replace the international law. So it's also a message from China to the global south, like we are, and it may be perceived as a bit cynical, we are the garant of the rule of law internationally.
So was this summit also a message directed personally at Donald Trump after his Beijing visit?
I would say partly yes. Clearly, the fact that this summit happened this week is not a coincidence. It's a week after visit of Mr. Trump in Beijing. Mr. Trump was coming alongside with a lot of businesses, representatives, Mr. Musk and others. Mr. Putin also is having a delegation of businessmen with him. But it's more to tell that we are together. Russia and China, we are together. And we will not accept a unilateral world leadership. We are the balance, and we are here to ensure that there is a multipolar world governance instead of the US lead governance. So I would say that the message is indeed to Mr. Trump. You see, we are partners. We know each other for a long time. And there is a big difference between the two leaders that are meeting this week and Mr. Trump. Mr. Trump is facing election in November, and he has a mandate of 5 years. Those two leaders are in power for more than 20 years, and they are not really afraid about election or their future. So this is a big difference also to take into consideration.
Mr. Metsu, despite the strong rhetoric, why was there still no final agreement on the Power of Siberia 2 pipeline?
Yes, there is no agreement because China is kind of bargaining hard. To be fair, it seems that Russia needs more the pipeline than China for now, because Russia needs to export its oil and gas. Russia. I mean, you know, there is a border between Russia and China of more than 4,000 kilometers. So it's a big partner, it's a big neighbor for Russia. And this is, after the war in Ukraine, let's say, their main client. And the situation in the Strait of Hormuz now is also, let's say, in the advantage of Russia, because now China is facing maybe difficulty of supply from Iran. So Russia is positioning itself as we are a trustable partner, we are capable to deliver what you need, and we need this pipeline. But there are still a lot of details about the financing and the control of the pipeline that are still on the table.
In your view, how concerned should the West be about expanding China-Russia cooperation in AI technology and defense-related sectors?
I think the West should be very concerned, especially about the dual-use technology, AI, surveillance space, drones, components and defense industrial learning. I would like to point a fact here. We are forgetting very often about the continent of Africa. And this is the continent where all the critical minerals that are needed for those industries, we speak about AI, military industry, are there. And as we know, China is very, very present in Africa, namely in the DRC. They are controlling more than 80% of the mines, the copper mines, the cobalt mines, the lithium. They have the biggest deposit in the world of rare earth. So together with Russia, they have a key advantage. And I think that the West should be really considering a better implication in Africa. You can't leave the continent to the hands of those two countries. And there are also disputes happening in Africa, and you may know that there are fights between Ukrainian special forces and Russian paramilitary in some countries in Africa. And China is very much attentive and aware of that, and they are doing all they can to protect their critical mineral supply. When in Europe, we are more about setting rules about the extraction rules, where is it from, has it been sources normally, etc. The Chinese, they really have not the same, let's say, they don't care much about the fact that is their children working in the mines, etc. They take it and they don't mind about all that details in their mind.
Gregor Wimich, political analyst, joining us from Stockholm. Thank you very much for your insights and for being with us. Thanks a lot.
You're always welcome.
Thank you. After the break, we'll take a look at the key stories shaping the region. Welcome back to A News, and now we turn to our regional stories. US President Donald Trump said he had a very good phone call with Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Speaking to reporters at Andrews Air Force Base, Trump praised Erdogan as a strong leader and an important ally. Here's what he said.
Yeah, I had a very good call with President Erdogan, and pretty standard. We have a very good relationship. Isn't it nice to have relationships with some very tough people? He's a tough guy, and but I have a relationship with him that nobody else does. He's actually done a good job. He's been, I think very much of an ally. Some people would doubt that, but I think he's been a great ally, and his people respect him. His people respect him a lot.
Turkey has proposed a fuel pipeline project aimed at strengthening energy supply security along NATO's eastern flank. The announcement came during the FS 2026 military exercise as tensions around the Hormuz Strait continued to raise concern over fuel transport and energy security. Adam Morrow brings details from Istanbul.
Turkey is putting forward a new energy security proposal for NATO. At a Wednesday press briefing, the Turkish Defense Ministry unveiled its proposal for what it calls a NATO fuel pipeline project, designed to enhance energy security for alliance members on NATO's eastern flank. According to the ministry, the proposed pipeline is aimed at reducing dependence on traditional maritime fuel transport routes. This is especially important now, given ongoing tensions around the Strait of Hormuz, a critical energy choke point linking producers in the Persian Gulf with international markets. Recent hostilities between Iran, Israel, and the United States have increased concerns over the security of energy shipping routes. According to officials, Turkey's pipeline proposal could be carried out faster than alternative options and would be around 5 times more cost-effective. For Ankara, the initiative is part of a broader argument, namely that Turkey's strategic geography allows it to play a key role in NATO's energy, logistics, and security planning. The timing of the announcement is also significant. The proposal was unveiled on the penultimate day of the FS 2026 joint exercises, one of Turkey's largest combined live-fire military drills, in which NATO allies and partner countries are taking part. The pipeline proposal, therefore, is about more than just energy security. It's also another signal that Turkey hopes to position itself as a key logistics and security hub for NATO at a time of steadily mounting regional volatility. This is Adam Morrow for A News in Istanbul, Turkey.
Pakistan is ramping up mediation between the United States and Iran as tensions simmer in the Strait of Hormuz. With Washington-Tehran talks ongoing, Pakistan's Interior Minister is on the ground for high-level meetings. Shira Lilo reports.
I am reporting from the port city of Bandar Abbas, capital of Iran's Saffron province of Hormuzgan. The province faces Oman, the United Arab Emirates, and the Strait of Hormuz, connecting the Persian Gulf and the Sea of Oman. The strategic waterway through which the major share of world's oil and gas is transited is currently on a hold following encounters between Iranian and US navies. In the newest development in the post-war tensions between Tehran and Washington, Pakistan's Interior Minister, Senator Mohsen Reza Naqvi, is visiting Iran in a bid to mediate a peace agreement. It is the second visit by the Pakistani official to Iran's capital in less than a week, seen as a sign that mediation efforts are at a critical stage. Meantime, Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman Ismail Baghai confirmed that the exchange of messages between Tehran and Washington is going on. He said the exchange of messages between the Iranian and US sides is continuing based on the text of Iran's 14-point proposal. On Islamabad's roles in this process, the spokesman added the presence of the Pakistani Interior Minister is to facilitate the exchange of messages. The visiting Pakistani official met with President Masoud Pezeshkian upon his arrival in Tehran on Wednesday. As his last week visit, he is expected to meet with his Iranian counterpart, as well as Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi and Parliamentary Speaker Mohammad Baqir Ghalibaf. Shira Lilo, reporting from Bandar Abbas for A News.
At the 13th session of the World Urban Forum, discussions are increasingly shifting from global sustainability ambitions to practical local implementation. One of the sessions focused on Azerbaijan's first national sustainability framework, the Sustainable Practices Standard developed by the Ecosphere Social Ecological Center. Ayten Shukurova has more.
One of the sessions held within the framework of 13th World Urban Forum focused on the Sustainable Practices Standard, Azerbaijan's first national sustainability standard, as the event enters its final days in Baku. According to the information presented during the session, the Sustainable Practices Standard is being developed by the Ecosphere Social Ecological Center and is considered the country's first national sustainability standard. Its main objective is to bridge the gap between global sustainability goals and local implementation mechanisms. According to the presentation, the standard will assess how sustainability principles are integrated into day-to-day operations. This includes indicators such as energy use, efficient resource management, waste reduction, operational optimization, and the use of local resources.
For us, this is more than a technical framework. It is an attempt to create a new culture of environmental and social responsibility adapted to our own regional reality. Because sustainability cannot exist only in global reports, international declarations, or conference discussions. It must become visible in everyday discussions in hotels, museums, schools, tourism destinations, public institutions, and urban spaces. Every country has its own environmental challenges, social dynamics, traditions, and development pathways. And this is why local sustainability systems matter. They help translate global principles into practical action that people can truly implement.
Addressing the session via video message, representative of President of Azerbaijan on climate issues, Mukhtar Babayev, linked the initiative to Azerbaijan's broader sustainability and climate agenda. Babayev noted that the successful hosting of COP29 in Baku further reinforced Azerbaijan's commitment to practical climate action and international cooperation. According to him, discussions during COP29 increasingly focused not only on climate targets, but also on implementation, resilience, climate finance, and the integration of sustainability into development policy. He also praised the work of the Ecosphere Social Ecological Center and its patrons involved in developing the SPS framework, emphasizing the importance of combining international experience with national realities in order to create standards that are both ambitious and practical. The broader context of the discussion was also reflected in global urbanization trends. According to United Nations data cited during the session, around 56% of the world's population currently lives in urban areas, with that figure expected to rise to 68% by 2050. Cities already account for more than 75% of global energy consumption and over 70% of carbon emissions. Ayten Şükürova, İlkin Mehdiyev, A-News.
The 13th World Urban Forum in Baku features high-level panel discussions mapping out the future of global megapolises. Among the key highlights is the Baku Master Plan 2040, a comprehensive document designed to reshape the capital's infrastructure and urban landscape. To understand how this strategy will address modern urban challenges while preserving the city's historic identity, our team spoke with Riyad Gasimov from the Baku City Main Department of Architecture and Urban Planning.
The most important of them are making Baku a human-centered city, which is oriented to the comfortable living of its citizens. It's going to be a well-balanced, polycentric city by 2040 with several centers outside of the historical core of the city. The second idea is to keep the balance of the precious architectural monuments of Baku and its cultural uniqueness. And the third idea is to make Baku a clear and safe environment from ecological point of view. We're expecting to increase per capita figures of the green areas 3 times by 2040. We're always open to learn from other countries, but the most important thing here, which we are very happy about, is that a lot of countries are also learning from us, from Azerbaijan, because we have not only in Baku, but also on the liberated territories in Karabakh and Eastern Zangezur, the cities and villages built from scratch. And this is a unique opportunity for the world and for us to show the world our success story.
Against the backdrop of the growing global water crisis and rapid urbanization, access to safe water and sanitation in cities became one of the key topics at WOOF 13. Experts and representatives of international organizations stressed the importance of integrating wash services, housing policies and land rights to build more inclusive and resilient cities. Our correspondent Narchicek Jahangirli reports.
As cities grow faster and climate pressures intensify, the global water crisis is becoming impossible to ignore. At WEF 13, UN agencies and urban experts gather to confront a stark reality. Millions of people in urban areas still live without safe water and sanitation. The session focused on how housing, land rights and wash services must work together to build inclusive and resilient cities ahead of the 2026 UN Water Conference in Abu Dhabi. Speakers highlighted that poor urban communities are the most affected. Many families living in informal settlements face unsafe water, poor sanitation, insecure housing and increasing climate risks. Participants stressed that access to water and sanitation is a basic human right and a key part of living conditions. The discussion called for practical solutions that improve services without forcing people from their homes. Delegates emphasized the need to include wash in slum upgrading, urban planning and land governance policies policies. One of the key outcomes of the session was the presentation of a roadmap linking WEF13 to the 2026 UN Water Conference. The roadmap aims to help cities develop climate-resilient wash systems and secure sustainable financing for urban services.
Water scarcity, even though we've got a lot of rain, but it's not relevant because it creates flooding and the rain just moves away. So I think it is important to build more reservoirs that can contain enough water for our communities.
The World Urban Forum in Baku can help us reflect on the need for city residents to have access to water in their homes. Water is a human right. Water is a shared resource belonging to all humanity and to all residents. Local governments must respond to this need through effective policies that address access to water, particularly for vulnerable groups, informal settlements and areas without legal property rights. Even so, cities and governments have an obligation to guarantee this right. We are bringing the voice of local governments to Abu Dhabi and to this year's conference in order to support and strengthen the role of governments in fulfilling this fundamental human right that people rightfully demand. As governments, we carry the responsibility of providing these services to the population every day, and we face these challenges more directly than any other level of administration. That is why the voice of local governments is especially important at the Water Conference and in Abu Dhabi. The aim is for all levels of government, together with urban communities and residents, to work collectively to solve this major problem, which could otherwise become a source of future global conflict.
Development banks, utilities and local experts shared successful examples from cities and called for stronger partnerships and greater political support. The session ended with a clear message. Achieving SDG 6 and building resilient cities will require coordinated action, inclusive planning and investment in the communities most in need. I'm Narchechek Jahangirli here with Natik Mehmedov, A News.
Now we'll take a short break. Right after the break, we'll discuss Azerbaijan's growing role as a regional investment and connectivity hub ahead of the second Azerbaijan International Investment Forum. See you shortly. Welcome back to A News. We now shift our focus to a regional story for discussion. Azerbaijan is stepping up efforts to position itself as a regional investment and connectivity hub as Baku prepares to host the second Azerbaijan International Investment Forum this September. Following last year's inaugural forum, which brought together nearly 1,000 participants and resulted in investment agreements worth more than $10 billion, expectations are now growing for an even larger global turnout. The event will focus on sustainable development, smart urban management, regional trade corridors, and Azerbaijan's growing role in east-west and north-south connectivity. To discuss this further, we're joined by Rustam Tagizadeh, political analyst who speaks to us from Baku. Mr. Tagizadeh, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Welcome. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you. Mr. Tagizadeh, how significant is the second Azerbaijan International Investment Forum for Azerbaijan's global economic ambitions? And what made the first forum successful? And what lessons can be earned into this year's edition?
That's great. Azerbaijan has moved beyond the phase of simply attending global events. With the first forum last year, Baku created its own platform. That is strategic. The message is clear. We are not just looking for investment. We are setting the agenda, what kind of investment we want. The forum brings together sovereign funds, development banks, and private capital under one roof. In a region where trust and transparency matter more than ever, hosting your own forum signals confidence and control. The first forum generated over $10 billion in signed agreements with 7 million of that in non-oil sectors. Yes. That is a powerful statement. Azerbaijan's ambition is not just to attract money, but to direct it into sectors that guarantee long-term resilience, energy logistics, technology, and reconstruction.
Mr. Takzadeh, how is Azerbaijan positioning itself as a bridge between East and West in global trade?
Okay, I think that geography is Azerbaijan's natural advantage, but it is no longer enough to just sit at a crossroads. The real value comes from turning that geography into active connectivity. Azerbaijan sits between Russia, Iran, Turkey, and Central Asia. That's a unique position. When traditional maritime checkpoints like Hormuz or the Suez Canal face disruption, overland routes become critical. Baku has invested heavily in ports, railway, and custom modernizations. The result is that today a container from China can reach in Baku 11 days via the middle corridor. When the world looks for alternatives, Azerbaijan is now the first name on the list.
So how important are smart and sustainable urban projects in Azerbaijan's investment strategy?
I think that the middle corridor is not a futuristic concept anymore. It is moving cargo today. And in days, volumes grew by over 60%. In the container traffic increased by the 36%. The Baku-Tbilisi-Kars railway is fully operational, and transit time for X and to Baku has been cut around 11 days. What makes the middle corridor special is that by pass both Russian and Iranian territory, which are currently high-risk zones. For European and Chinese investors, that reliability is worth a premium. The Organization of Turkic States expects volumes to reach 10 million tons in the near future. Azerbaijan is not just a segment of this corridor. It is a central hinge. And I think that it is increased by the day.
Mr. Takzadeh, what do you think? How could the forum strengthen Azerbaijan's non-oil economy?
Oil economy. Okay. Diversification is not just a slogan in Azerbaijan. It is happening. Renewable energy is the most visible example. The country has a set target, 30 green energy by the 2030, and the Caspian wine potential alone is estimated. I think that oil industry will be increased by the day, and opportunities for investors in the alert-free economic zone. Alert is not just another industrial zone. It is designed as a gateway to the middle corridor. Companies located, they benefit from simplified customs, tax exemptions, and streamlined administration. And every country in the region offers incentives. What sets Azerbaijan apart is stability and executions. Political stability is often taken for granted here, but investors value it enormously. The second advantage is infrastructure, not just plans, but exciting ports, railways, and industrial zones that are already operational. Also, third, Azerbaijan has a track record of delivering large projects on time, from the southern gas corridor to the Baku-Tbilisi-Kars railway. Yes.
Rustam Takzadeh, thank you very much for your time and valuable insights. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. This concludes our news update for the hour. Thank you for your time and stay with us for further updates.